So you are at Lighthouse Urban Farm, and I am Damien Valdez, and
I'm Jamie Williamson.
And we grow medicinal herbs here in a variety of different lavenders, as well as native plants and dye plants.
So in 2016, we started working on Lighthouse Urban Farm. We did some research on some spots, and we eventually landed here.
The most important thing for us was actually the soil. So we were able to find a place that had sandy loam, which is really what we were looking for a lot of the plants that we were looking to grow. They needed something that was well draining. This is actually part of the La Jolla Amago Reservation. They're part of the Luiseño tribe. As you can kind of see, this area around us is very pristine and well kept. So for a long time, this was originally part of the reservation and was sold off, I believe, about 70 years ago, is what the landowner told us. We still consider it as part of the reservation. We don't see it as a difference between native land and non-native land. For us, this is still native land. So definitely there's a lot of responsibility that comes with stewarding that land, because essentially you're adopting something that's not inherently yours. And something that was in a state when you got here. So now that we're here cultivating, one of the things that's really important to us is that it's able to return to the way that it was when we leave. So kind of like a no trace left behind type thing where, you know, hey, we may only be here a few years, whether we're successful or not. We may be here 10, 20 years, we don't know. But the end goal is for us to be able to leave this environment very similar to the way that it was when we got here. So that influences a lot of our cultivating practices and a lot of the decision making on what we're growing and how we're growing it. We're located at the base of Palomar Mountain in San Diego. Our elevation is about 2,200 feet, and we're in an actual little valley. At one point you can tell there used to be some sort of pond or lake here. And so we have a lot of, really good soil structure here. The temperatures can feel rather extreme. We can get really hot up into the triple digits in summer, which is rather stressful when you're running on a well that also, has constraints. The environment is really interesting because it can be a little harsh. And in some ways it kind of feels like you're on the frontier of climate change. When things get dry, they get really dry out here. This is definitely fire country. And that can be a little disconcerting, but it also makes the work that we do feel like that much more important because we're bringing life back to the area and try and bring some of the moisture that's out there back down here.
So we have a variety of different medicinal herbs and flowers. We've got lavender, calendula, comfrey, chamomile, the list goes on. We're dabbling in some dye plants, so indigo, hollyhocks. We've got some native variety of elderberries.
And as far as cultivation practices, we're really going for like a minimal tillage approach or no-till. So really we just use a broad fork to kind of aerate the soil, and then we use like a type of hack hoe to kind of incorporate the organic matter and leave it in place. What we're doing is we're just cutting down the crop, leaving the root system in place to decompose in the soil. Because this is native land and has been inhabited, it wouldn't really be responsible to come in with a tractor and just start leveling things and making this as flat as possible. There are artifacts in the ground, so we have to be very careful. We can't just bring a rototiller through and start mixing everything up because we don't want to damage anything that we can't see. So that's one of the reasons why we kind of go in with this minimal tillage approach. It's not only because we feel it's better for the soil, but it's also just better for us given our environment and for the people that have inhabited this area previously.
Originally we had a crop plan all laid out, and we said, we're gonna do everything under the sun. Lots of flowers, lots of herbs, and just learning the environment and learning what can actually grow here, that changed it up quite a bit. We did find that some things grow a lot better out here, and some things, you know, it's too hot or it's too windy and they don't grow at all. So it's really, it's been about us learning what can actually grow here and thrive.
Yeah, I think the thriving component is really important because, like Jamie said, there was a lot of trial and error, and we had to whittle that list down of those, you know, those hopes and dreams. Essentially, if they can't survive in this environment, then we don't grow them. We look for heat tolerance, but whether it was actual as heat tolerant as we needed it to be, we found out rather quickly. And so it's really important, we feel, is just kind of like a base for any type of farming to figure out what works really well. But also balancing the resources. So for instance, water is obviously going to be a huge thing going forward. It already has been a huge thing and something, you know, we've accounted for. You know, I've worked in avocados. They're extremely water intensive. They grow well here, but does that mean that we should be growing them here? I don't know, but these are the types of questions I think we need to start asking ourselves. What really makes sense? You know, do we need to keep throwing massive amounts of water at something to keep it running? Or should we trim it back and use less water? Really what we're looking to do here is tailor the system to work specifically within the kind of limitations that we have. You know, again, make the adjustment or pivot how we need to make sure that not only we can be successful, but that we're not depleting the environment either. But also we've had to start using like this plastic mulch. And this becomes kind of like an interesting thing philosophically, right? So we're trying to do this local product that's as environmentally conscious as possible, but we're using plastic mulch. But the reason we're using the plastic mulch is because of how fragile our environment is. And that, you know, when we're getting wood chips from mulch people, they can say that it's clean, but when it's dumped and we're still sorting out the trash from it, that's problematic for this environment. That's not really something we can have happening, on top of the fact that we don't want to be introducing any potential pests that are insects, things like that, that might be living in the mulch, that might start affecting the oak trees that are surrounding us or the environment in different ways. So we've had to source this kind of plastic mulch to use for some of the crops. It's not really so much for weed suppression for us, it's really about moisture retention. So the sun hemp is a cover crop that we're using. It is a nitrogen fixer, and it is also used for biomass. So one of the things that we are, again, really sensitive to here is not importing a lot of materials. So, you know, even compost, you know, we have to be really sensitive to what noxious seeds are potentially coming in with that we then have to manage in this environment. So something like this is really important for us because, again, we get that nitrogen fixation, then we get to incorporate the plant into the soil and let it break down. So that'll also feed the biology, and that way we'll get that better water retention as well. Basically what we're doing is we're breaking down the materials in place. By leaving the roots in place, we're kind of helping the structure of the soil create these air pockets so that we can have good infiltrations. But all the kind of residues and things that are broken down from the plant are going to kind of help absorb and hold on to that moisture. And that's kind of what we're looking for, especially in this hot and dry environment. These are long-term goals, but something that happened over time. Our kind of general philosophy is not to like take out all of the weeds. You know, what's nice about here is that we can kind of let things grow, and then we just mow it down and we use it as mulch, and it kind of acts as a organic ground cover, and it breaks down naturally. But we're not looking to suppress everything that grows. Again, the idea isn't to have the soil bare, but to let plants come up. So, you know, farming as part of your particular context is really understanding at the root, where are you growing? Where are you at in the world? What is your environment? What is your bioregion? And starting there, what is it like right here? Because what grows down here is different than what grows on the coast of San Diego. We're not trying to make a square, you know, peg fit in a round hole. And as we've touched on numerous times, seeing what works and what doesn't work, seeing how we can use what's already growing in the area and kind of amplify that, and then also recreating certain environments. We're surrounded by oak forests that have understories of yarrow and other plants growing underneath them. How can we grow those plants in a similar fashion? Where are there areas on the farm that we can recreate certain habitats? And something that we really look to is nature, the world around us. It's almost like a type of mimicry, right? Kind of recreating. Eventually when we're gone, these are the types of plants that'll still be here, are the ones that were always here. So that for us is a huge part of what we're doing. So seed saving is really important in what we do, not just as a business practice, but as an individual practice. Really because, agriculture as we know it wouldn't be here without seed savers. And specifically, the act of saving seed is something that connects us to our past as well as the present and into the future. Just one seed has a story. It brings us, again, from the person that cultivated it before us to our hands now, and then to the future for the people that will handle it after us. And so seed saving is really good because we're able to create bioregional adapted varieties, so things are going to grow really well in our specific environment, and we can select that over time. So we can take those varieties, save those seeds that did do well, and continue to build on that, and eventually we can have all the plants that we want to grow doing really well out here based on being bioregionally adapted. So there's different types of seed saving. We have open pollinated seed saving where varieties mix across and we get a lot of diversity or a lot of genetic diversity, and that's really good. But sometimes if we're looking to save a rare or a more uncommon variety, we want to be a lot more structured in how we're saving the seed. We want to make sure that there's not cross-pollination with certain species, so that we're getting true to type seeds. And it's really important we understand and differentiate between those. We like to grow a lot of heirloom or ancient seeds, and a lot of that is just about connecting with our past, and again understanding that we're holding seeds that our ancestors held, and so they've brought that from the past again to us here in the present, and we can continue that tradition by growing here now, and continuing that on to give to other people. We're able to experience that relationship with our ancestors, and we can see things through their eyes. Our growing practices may be different, but we get to go through these motions in the same way that our ancestors did. And in that way, we get to be our ancestors.